Okay.
We are
Good.
streaming.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the October 17th work session for the North Clackamas School District. According to House Bill 4212, we are meeting online. We welcome everyone that is meeting with us virtually. We respect your time and we respect that you've chosen your time to be with us. I want to start off by just saying, I want to say thank you first to the staff, the administration of North Clackamas School District. We have done a lot of pivots, and I don't want to do anything before we say thank you. We know we have work to do. We know we have things to talk about, but the first thing is appreciation because we have gotten to this point. So thank you for that. With that, I will turn it over to Superintendent Utterback, and then we will start with our agenda.
Thank you, Chair Ford. Let me share my screen. Sorry, I can't get my, there we go. Okay, so for the community that is joining us today, here is our agenda that we're going to walk through over the next 2.5 hours or so. After my brief introduction this morning, I'll turn it back over to Chair Ford to lead a conversation with our board. Just kind of generally where they're at, what are they hearing with regards to comprehensive distance learning and beginning to potentially open up some aspects of our school district. I'll turn it then over to Cindy Detchen, our Assistant Superintendent for Operations, who will lead us through a conversation and sharing the most recent thought exchange results. Those closed on Thursday of this week, and we spent yesterday compiling those into themes that we'll share with you and the public today. Chief of Staff, Tiffany Shireman, then will update us all on the health metrics and where we are in the state of Oregon and Clackamas County with regards to meeting those metrics. And then I'll go through kind of 5 areas in which I think we need to make some decisions around reopening or not reopening. And in each of those areas, I'll provide a recommendation as a starting point. We'll then take a short little break, and then we'll come back, and Chair Ford will lead the board in a discussion regarding those reopening recommendations and see if we can generally reach some consensus before bringing action to the board this coming Thursday at your board meeting. After that, we've got some governance meeting topics, some kind of housekeeping, review board book and the board manual. It's now updated, talk about committee assignments, and then hopefully finalize some dates for the board with regards to some activities related to the superintendent search. So as we have through the very beginning of the pandemic in relation to making decisions in our school district, we focus on that district direction, preparing graduates who are inspired and empowered to strengthen the quality of life in our local and global communities. We strive to make our decisions utilizing the North Clackamas School District Equity Lens, which you see on the screen, and really work to ground our decisions based in our guiding principles, our values that are embedded in our strategic plan of equity, engagement, care, integrity, and excellence. As we work through the decision-making processes, we've used these guiding thoughts in that decision-making process, right? That we value a high-quality education and the academic progress of each student, and that we also want to support the low rates of COVID-19 virus transmission in the community. We want to coordinate our actions that underscore the safety and care for people and provide reassurance for our students, staff, and parents. And finally, we want to stand ready with multiple educational delivery models that are responsive to the current health and community needs. We continue to be guided by a lot of resources, from the Oregon Health Authority to the Oregon Department of Education to the Clackamas County Health Department. Ready School Safe Learners is the most comprehensive guidance that we're currently operating under. There are companion documents to that. One of those companion documents you see in the middle of the screen is the components of comprehensive distance learning. And then two additional documents. The top one there on the right is the most recent guidance from the Oregon Health Authority regarding the health metrics and the various aspects and exceptions of those health metrics with regards to schools reopening. And then the bottom document on the right-hand side is a communication recently from Clackamas County Mental Health regarding the status of the health metrics and the virus conditions in Clackamas County that came out last week. So with that, I'll take any questions as I transition back to Chair Ford to lead a board discussion really on this question of what are you hearing and or feeling when it comes to the reopening of district facilities and schools? So Chair Ford.
Thank you, Superintendent. Did anyone have any questions for Superintendent Underback before we begin? I can see most of you. Okay, great.
I have one, Lieber.
Okay, go ahead, Director Bauer.
Thank you. Superintendent, what is the latest change on is there, the latest from the county? I don't know if I am really on that. I was looking for information, but.
Yeah, as probably many of you are aware, Clackamas County, along with the entire state, is seeing an escalation in COVID cases. And that is the most recent communication we received from Clackamas County is acknowledging that. And they, in their communication to us earlier this week, they are, I think the word probably is directing that any school district that was in that K-3 exception, kindergarten through third grade exception of bringing kids onto campus for in-person learning, will need to move back into comprehensive distance learning beginning, I believe, October 26th. My staff can correct me on that if I didn't get that correct, but that's the most recent communication. Still allowing for athletics, still allowing for small group instruction, but the large K-3 needs to move back into comprehensive distance learning.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Director Perez.
Superintendent, what question that's been presented to me by a few parents in the district. What's the feasibility of some form of, as long as it's done safely, following all the safety protocol, but what's the feasibility of a small in-class if parents are willing to sign a waiver, releasing the district from any kind of legal, if the child did come down with COVID or a family member? Because I've had some parents say, hey, I'll sign a waiver and release the district from any legal to get my kid in the classroom. I've had a couple parents say that.
So before you start, Superintendent, I'm going to say that we defer to the section in the agenda. There is a specific section where we will speak to this. I will write this specific question down, Director Perez, so we can get to that. But I want to give you all an opportunity to be able to speak to what you're hearing before we get into those details.
Well, that's what I am hearing.
Well, that's a question which requires a response. So our discussion is not necessarily that, but we're going to go into, it's on our agenda to go into detail about what you're talking about.
Right now, it's just what we're hearing in the community about athletics.
About anything. It's just about like where you guys at. And here's the thing. So let's move into this section because I think it's important that you understand what we're trying to do. We rarely get an opportunity to speak about what we hear in our meetings. We sit, we listen a lot, we make decisions, we read a lot outside of meetings, but the way that the dynamics of governance works, we rarely get a time to just say, hey, this is what I'm hearing. This is not necessarily a Q&A. We have a time in the agenda for Q&A. This is just you as a director, as an elected person to say, hey guys, I read all these letters. This is what I'm hearing you guys say. I'm an elected listener, and I want you to know that you've been heard. Then later in the agenda, not only will you be able to reiterate that, you will also be able to bring back up specific questions in the section of recommendations and particularly options for us in terms of potentially reopening. Does that make sense to everyone? Because we only have 2 hours, I don't want us to derail too far, because we got a lot of information we got to get into these 2 hours, and we could potentially just derail so far we won't get to it. Okay?
Okay, I'll go real quick.
Okay, go ahead, Director.
So I have heard lots about the not understanding how we can't have people outside on our fields. That's safe, and they're very frustrated with that. And I've also, one, since my daughter's a teacher, am feeling really bad for teachers because they were the godly last spring. And now I feel like they are the whipping post for why we're not open today. And I'm hearing a lot about it's the teachers union, it's this union that's not allowing our kids back into the classroom. And it's unfortunate, and it's bothersome that is where, and what I've been hearing is where the blame lies, if you will. And then the fact that daycares are now open for 20 kids or less. Why can't we have classrooms of 20 kids or less? That's what I've been hearing.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Director Perez.
Can you come back to me?
Yep.
Kind of reformulating my thoughts.
Absolutely.
So I don't ask a question.
Excellent. Director Bauer.
Thank you, Director Ford. I'm hearing from parents that even with the same children, they're having very different struggles or successes. Some of their own children are very independent and doing well. Even for a middle school student, just being on a computer for a number of hours and trying to focus on independent learning is a struggle. So I've heard that from a couple parents. I checked in with some of my parents who have language struggles, and again, it was mixed. One parent said her daughter just really missed the socializing, she's doing okay, she's learning. Almost everyone said their students are learning. One special ed mother said that she really appreciated the teacher coming to their home and dropping off packets and at least seeing the person distancing, and that support and that effort was really appreciated. Overall, everyone wanted to thank the staff for their efforts and doing an amazing job. I didn't hear much of that. I think PCLA is aware of liability issues, and I'll just stop there.
Okay, thank you for that. Director Banaloga.
Thank you, Chair Ford. I'm also hearing a lot of the same things where some families are feeling like their students are being successful and some families are not. I also am hearing that for some of our older kids, maybe high schoolers, that just being engaged and continuing to stay engaged in the classes, for some of the parents is really hard. They don't want to have to babysit that time. And it's hard to keep the motivation, which of course it's a struggle in the classroom, let alone not having them in the building. I'm also hearing just some frustration from other areas and even other states that are opening. And there's a couple of threads on a few groups on Facebook, just being really frustrated with other areas in other states being able to open and then Oregon not. and specifically our area. So I think there's a little bit of frustration there. And then lots of concerns about just the cost of keeping the kids home. I know that there's a big economic impact for a lot of our families. So I know that that's a real concern for several of our families as well. I do have to say that there is, and this may just be where I am and who I'm speaking with, but there's a lot of parents that are very appreciative and thankful and understand this is challenging and not optimal. But they do feel the district is doing all they can and doing the best job possible in a very, very challenging situation. So I think that those comments have been helpful. I did hear from a couple of parents that just felt that the elementary school work was not as challenging as they had hoped. Again, I think that every family is going to have a different experience when it comes to that. And I'm also hearing that people are quite thankful that we're still in comprehensive distance learning, that they're concerned for the health of their family and their children, and that they're quite thankful that we are home, as well as I am hearing people that are frustrated and want to see more in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Strado?
Yeah, so I'm, reading a lot. So like the latest Oregon Health Authority document that is online shows, age 0 through 9 and 10 through 20, it's about 15.4% of the cases. And this is while we have CDL happening. So I'm sitting here and I have not found the answer to my question online, which hopefully down the road, Oregon Health Authority or staff can get a hold of, but this age group goes home to people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and 80s is the highest mortality rate. But the fundamental question is, if CDL is happening now and we have 15.4% infection rate of that age group, what's that? And there's no deaths in recorded in that age group. But when CDL goes to in-person, is that number going to rise? And then is the elderly population going to be the one who dies? So I'm continuing to read and listen to people. A lot of people are happy that we are. Some people are settling in that this is going to be many years. And so I'm equally want to see some type of, improvement in the education delivery model to service, ELs and IEPs. I just don't know what it is and at what cost. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Perez?
So what I've been hearing pretty much is across the board, but the one common theme is I have heard a lot of appreciation for the teachers and the work that the district's doing. I have heard a lot of, wow, this is a lot better than the spring. I've heard that quite a bit. A lot of appreciation. And then the other reoccurring theme that I've been hearing is the importance of the resources for mental health, for any kind of, any and all of the above resources for our families. That keeps coming up, in particular mental health. And so that's come up a lot. What I'm feeling is, as far as my thoughts on reopening school, I'm feeling that we as a district, that we should wait until 2021, just because of the whole, we're at the beginning of the cold flu season. Working in the medical field, I know this is often a time when flu spikes. And so now we're dealing with this coronavirus. We don't know a whole lot about it. So that's how I'm feeling as far as the reopening of schools. I feel we should open 2021 for the safety of all. And also just to get past the whole elections thing that's drawing upon us here in a couple of weeks. and all the other unsettling things going on, I think it'd just be nice as a district, as a community, to wait till 2021. That's what I'm feeling. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, everyone. And I just want to reiterate, as elected officials, it's our job to listen to the community and then bring those voices here where they can be elevated. And oftentimes it's voices that don't know how to elevate their voice, right? So it's so important that you guys share those things. So I appreciate you taking a moment to do that. Me personally, what I've been hearing is most of what you guys have said, big concerns about, I think, the groups that have some very individualized needs. I think overall, most people are very appreciative for the umbrella approach of the curriculum, and it's been enhanced from the spring. And but somehow in there, we got to figure out these individuals that have specialty needs, and they don't fit in one box. And with our equity stance, that's our job. That's what we said we would do. We would make sure that all are seen and heard. And that falls into many categories for me when I hear them. It's from what Director Benaloga said, from the cost in the house. So we got some poverty lines that are just being smothered by this system, and people have lost jobs. And so there's a lot of dynamics for which we have no control over. And I'm not asking for this district to try to fix all these dynamics that are happening. But I do think we have an opportunity personally to figure out how to get to those individuals who need something different, because we have to. And then that becomes kind of a formula for the future. But somehow we just got to figure that out. And it's a daunting solution to try to come up with, but I think we can do it with the team that we have and the listening that we do. I also think that this has been a problem for hundreds of years. And so you've been given literally 30 seconds to figure it out. So in that, I ask the public to find patience, but I do recognize that there's been a lot of solutions found very quickly. And some of those quick solutions won't always work, but we've also seen you guys pivot really quickly. So I think we just keep doing that, and stuff will land and work and stuff will not. But I think everyone's really open to at least us trying to do something. All right, so thank you for that. I'm gonna go ahead and pass this back to us. Are we ready to go to Cindy, Matt, for thought exchange results? You're on mute.
Thank you. Let me reshare my screen again.
Yes. Thank you, guys. That's the best picture ever.
Well, I don't know what happened to my PowerPoint. It's gone. So
We're going to Maui.
I know. I was like, that looks like Hawaii to me. Looks like Diamond Head, though. Where is that?
Is it Honolulu?
It's on Oahu.
Yeah, it looks like Diamond Head. Is that Diamond Head or no? Or
above it, yeah. Okay. Sorry for
there
the
we go.
Okay, Cindy, take it away.
Great, thank you. I think what you'll be hearing from me is not going to be a surprise. You are very in tune to your community, and what we heard from our parents, at least in the thought exchange, echoes everything that I just heard you all share. We did put this out about 10 days ago. It was the same question, although we had 4 different participant groups, but all 4 participant groups had the same question. We asked parents, students, which went to our middle and our high school students, as well as our instructional staff. And that was divided between certified licensed staff and our instructional assistants, or anybody else who supports instruction directly, but are on the classified end of our staffing. But they were asked this question: what are the most important successes and challenges you are experiencing during comprehensive distance learning and or the virtual online programs? We did include our students and our families and our staff that were participating in our virtual online program. So our parents, as you can see, are experiencing some successes and some challenges as well. Across the board, as I heard some of you say, they recognize teachers, staff are working really, really hard and doing an amazing job, and always couched in the phrase of, given the current circumstances, they can't expect that we could do a whole lot more than how they are doing during this pandemic. They love the live classes, the synchronous classes, huge improvement over the spring. This was a little bit of a surprise to me, and it was a nice thing to see. Parents are recognizing that their children are becoming independent. They're learning how to manage time. They're being responsible for turning things in and letting their parents know when new information comes out. So they're seeing a change of independence because there's so much responsibility being held on the student to be in front of a screen at a certain time. There are no bells to tell them to move from class to class. And there's also recognition that they appreciate the office hours that teachers are holding so that they can check in with specific questions. Some of the challenges, I believe this was coming more from elementary than secondary, but there was several comments about a need for a consistent daily schedule. So we're going to look into that a little bit more and drill down into is it a particular school or a grade level to see where that inconsistency is, where our parents are experiencing that inconsistency. Lots and lots of comments around a lack of social interaction. This is the biggest, by far, the biggest issue that our parents are recognizing and are frustrated with. Specifically for our elementary students, again, wanting more materials at home, and we are working on that as well, making sure that they have some access to learning using something other than a computer device. A lot of comments about frustration of too much screen time. And I can say as adults that are doing a lot of our work on screen time, I know we're feeling it as well. Our high school students, mostly, these are parents of high school students, frustrated about lack of communication around student progress, in particular grades. Is Parent View being updated? They get the weekly Guardian summary from Google Classroom on these are the assignments that they missed last week, but not a lot of information about student progress when it comes to, but how are they actually doing? I know they missed a couple assignments last week, but how are they actually doing in their learning? And then elementary, echoing again, there's a lot of supervision that needs to be done at home, sitting side by side the child, particularly our primary grades, in making sure that students are logging on time, walking through the curriculum with them, and frustration because parents are working. And so those who are home are feeling very lucky to be able to do so, but they also recognize that their neighbors, their cousins, their sisters, their friends may not be as lucky. This is a report that comes out of Thought Exchange, our platform for gathering this data. When it's not always helpful in all situations, but in this particular question, I found this extremely helpful in understanding when there are two very polarizing opinions among one group of participants, and these are our parents. Where do they differ in a particular comment? And so on side A, you can see 248 participants feel very strongly, given a 5.0 rating, that's the highest star rating, that kids need to go back to school, period. Very, very strong opinion. The B side, which is shown in green, almost identical number. This is almost 50-50 in terms of where people are split completely down the middle, where side B is saying, please consider extending comprehensive distance learning into the winter at the very least. Very concerned about cold and flu season, as well as spreading the pandemic. So completely polar opposites, almost 50-50, but look right in the middle. One of the things that they all have in common, whether they strongly disagree on this topic, is that teachers and staff are working very hard and people appreciate that. So I just wanted to throw this slide in there. This differences report doesn't work for every topic, but I thought this one was pretty poignant in our conversation for this morning. Here are our students, again, middle and high school students, because this went out via email and they're the ones that have emails. Positives, I will have to say I had to search pretty thoroughly to find the positives from students. They like to share their opinions a lot. We love how students just put it right out there. And so I had to search quite deeply to find the positives, but there are some. And they also recognize, just like their parents, that teachers are putting in a lot of work. And they really see the efforts happening by their teachers and their staff members and their principals. And kind of a funny one that got a little bit of a high rating is, I now know that I have to check my email. That's important. That's an adult skill. And if I don't check my email every day, I'm going to miss some things and my grade's going to suffer. So again, getting back to what parents are recognizing is that students are becoming more responsible in some cases. And students also really appreciate the live classes. They like the interaction with their teacher, and though they're comparing that obviously to last spring when that was not the case in a different kind of a distance learning model. Challenges, this is a high school comment that was probably the #1 comment from our students, trying to do a semester's worth of work and the amount of material and the amount of assignments that come into a very short quarter is overwhelming. There's a lot of comments around stress, working long hours, can't keep up with the assignments. Even though they're only doing 4 classes, the amount of assignments they're getting a day is, for many of them, unbearable. It's unclear instructions. Some of this had to do, I drilled down a little bit. Some of this had to do with the different platforms that some teachers are using. They're not sure if they should go to Google Classroom or just check their email, or if it's on different kinds of apps that some of our teachers are using. They're a little bit unclear on exactly what they're supposed to do. Our high school course has a community and connections class. They say it's a nice idea. They liked it the first couple of weeks, but it's not being as helpful as they get further into the quarter. Online work is stressful when you can't check in with peers and teachers very often. They're used to walking into a teacher's room during their prep or in between classes, and they aren't able to do that obviously now. Too much asynchronous work. This is the assignments that are given to them outside of the live classroom sessions. They're struggling keeping up with that. They also are seeing the stress of working on a computer all day long. They miss their friends. And this is a direct quote, "My pain is immeasurable." That's a tough one to hear. Our staff, and this is combined, our certified and our classified staff, all working with direct instruction. They also are very appreciative of the live classes, the synchronous classes. It allows for more student engagement and opportunities to build relationships. And they also feel like these are allowing them to have get more engagement from students than they had been previously. They appreciate being in comprehensive distance learning. They really appreciate having the opportunity to stay home and be safe. For those who are working in the classrooms but live streaming, they're doing that in an isolated social distancing model, and they really appreciate the district and the board's attention to their safety as well as the students. And they're getting a lot more collegial collaboration. They are having meetings online. They're calling professional learning community meetings together. Grade level discussions are happening, and they really appreciate the collegial collaboration in order to share some of that workload and creating some of those lessons. Challenges, #1, very, very top of the list, and probably the top 10 comments are all about workload, working way harder and more hours than they ever have before. There's a lot more work that goes into creating a strong lesson, and then creating all the things that need to happen to then post it online, and making sure that students who aren't able to see it during the live synchronous session to be able to view it later, and then following up and checking attendance. All of those things are adding to their workload. And one comment, here's a direct quote again, "I feel like an overcooked egg with a cracked shell." Then a recognition also for a need to get materials, books into kids' hands and not just send assignments via the computer. And a recognition that learning new technology is hard, and making sure that it works properly for everyone. And we have experienced some issues with some of our older Chromebooks. They can't do some of the things that the newer ones can, so such as the breakout groups, which could be very helpful in some cases, but a lot of our students do not have devices that would support having small group breakout rooms from a live synchronous session. So that's been a frustration as well. And those are our themes from our staff.
Great, thank you. I'll do a roll call for questions for Cindy regarding the thought exchange. We'll start off with Director Perez. You have any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I love questions, as you know. Yeah, Cindy, just one question. Is it that, So the whole, I mean, pain is immeasurable. There's a few quotes in there that are kind of hard to swallow. And then the one the teacher said, overcooked egg, cracked shell. Actually, on that one, I'm wondering, is it possible to, if you haven't already done so, I don't know, maybe you've already done this, but just to share that with all of our teachers in the district, that whole, we're in the middle of the agreement and disagreement, but in the middle, everybody said the teachers and staff are working so hard. We really appreciate it. It shows the students it is possible and how much they care. Is it possible to share that?
Absolutely. So what we have done for this morning's work session with you is to give you a snapshot of some of the top comments and themes. It takes several days for us to go through the entire report and create a report that's publishable, that really makes sense to people. We're putting them in themes so people can see that. So we'll have a publishable report next week, and that differences report that you saw, I think, is a key one to share both with our community as well as our staff. So I would look about midweek. We can get it done probably by Tuesday or Wednesday to have a full report on our website.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Excellent. Director Way is still not here, right? Okay. Director McVeigh?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Director Schrader?
I do not have any questions.
Excellent. Director Benaloga?
I don't have any questions at this time. Thank you.
Excellent. Director Bauer?
Cindy, thank you, Director Ford. Did you say how many responses you had for each group? And I missed it. Parents, students, staff?
Yeah, I didn't include it in this presentation, but I can give that number to you here.
Well, that's okay. You said it, you'll have it later and we'll see it on the next part. That's fine. I'll get it later.
We had just under 3,000 participants total.
Oh, okay, that helps.
I would say twice as many parents as the other groups. So about half of that were parents.
That gives me enough information. So thank you.
So just to continue on that thought, so what's that, about 18% response rate?
Yeah, it's hard to be, even though we have 17,000-ish students, they represent about 11,000 families.
Okay, so a little more than that then.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's really good. For me personally, I just had one question, which was when you gave the example about some of the things people were saying in the classroom and teachers feeling overwhelmed and students feeling like it's too much work. Is there any way that we could have maybe some past staff that we've had to let go be health checkers in the classroom, where they can visually just pay attention to students as well as be technical support, so that the teacher's not managing every part of the class?
Yeah, we are actually working on that right now. So since we got the state grant for transportation, we're able to call back some of our transportation staff and have them self-identify if this was a good role for them, and be able to have them do some instructional assistant type work along with our other IAs, be kind of a helper to the instructional assistants. We're working on that right now.
Excellent. And the last question I have is, I feel like there was a missing part of the information in the thought exchange from middle school. So do we have any information on how they're doing?
Yeah, it's kind of wrapped up in between all of these comments. I'd have to go in and pull out the 4 middle schools and look at their data specifically to see if there's any real differences. But the amount of work in a semester was also pretty prevalent among our middle school. I think it's a higher urgency for our high school students because they know that their credits are contingent upon their success.
Yeah,
so it's a little bit more at the forefront for our high school students.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that information. And if I might say, Community Connections, I think that when you guys presented it, it was an awesome concept and theory. And having 2 children in my house and listening to their response, yeah, I guess as adults, we don't really know what they need. So
That's why we check in with them to see how it's going.
I already did. They're like, yeah, no. But it was a great theory. I thought it was great, whatever. You guys are doing great. All right, we can move right along. Our next thing on our agenda is the health metrics review. And Tiffany Shireman, are you ready for us?
I'm right here. Good
Excellent.
morning, everybody.
Good morning, Tiffany.
Good morning. It is a good one. I will just share because it's Saturday. I have my It's Official, We're Awesome cup here. So everybody, thank you for being here. I appreciate the focus and attention on our community's youth. Oregon's health metrics that are required prior to returning to instruction for all students remain unchanged at this time. I'm going to talk through 3 groups. One, instruction for all students in person. Then we're going to move to another slide that's about instruction for K through 3. And then a slide that is about limited small group one-on-one kind of instruction. So this particular slide is all students for in-person instruction requires 3 consecutive weeks of 5% or less test positivity in both the county and the state, and also requires less than or equal to 10 cases per 100,000 in the county in the preceding days. And also for our school district, because of the number of folks that we have who work here in Clackamas County and live in Multnomah County, we are required to follow Clackamas's county's metrics and need to consider Multnomah's clearly because a quarter of the staff is a lot of people. In fact, probably in the neighborhood of about 500 or so, which is substantial. So moving into the health metrics required for kindergarten through 3rd grade. These are grades kindergarten through 3rd. And this is in order for a school district to even consider moving into in-person instruction. Many of the metrics here remain the same. The one that changes is instead of 10 less than or equal to 10 case rates or cases per 1,000, we're looking at 30 less than or equal to 30 cases per 100,000. And then moving into the health metrics for small group instruction, individual students, moves away from that case rate kind of language and moves to no confirmed cases of COVID-19 among school staff or students in the past 14 days. So that's with a pretty strong relationship between the Clackamas County Health Department and North Clackamas School District, the Multnomah County Health feeding information to the school district about case rates, and the school district feeding information up when the school district hears information too. So that takes a pretty tight relationship there. Moving into then where are we? So where are we? You'll notice here that the state has exceeded the 5% threshold for test positivity in the first part of the slide at 6.4%. You'll notice that in this past week, Clackamas County and Multnomah County also have exceeded that 5% threshold. If you look to the case rates, you'll notice that the case rate figures between Clackamas and Multnomah counties ranges from 30 to 59 cases per 100,000. I'll hone in on Clackamas, where the majority of staff and students reside, and where our strict requirement lies, and that is 30 to 47.9 per 100,000. I want to call attention to what was alluded to earlier in Matt's initial comments in response to a question at the very beginning of the presentation. Clackamas County's public health officer and director issued a letter saying that all schools should prepare for the transition, if you had moved to anything in person, back to comprehensive distance learning beginning the week of the 26th of October, and that this is based on not meeting the metrics the last 3 weeks and no anticipation of improvement in this coming weeks. So I'm going to underscore that last part, no anticipation of improvement in the coming weeks. just in the past day, on the 14th, it was released and we started to review it yesterday and today. Oregon Health Authority has released some new projections, so to speak, and I'm going to pull my notes here on them up. It goes to, Director Schradel was mentioning earlier about pre-adolescent age students and the case rates for pre-adolescent age students. I think he used a 15% kind of figure somewhere in there. I'm not seeing the Oregon Health Authority break out, or if they are, they're not releasing it in their public releases, information about that specific age group. But what they are releasing is, even if the transmission rates remain the same, if we're using the same methods that we have in recent weeks, the current modeling is that over the next month, the outcomes are going to continue to increase based on the slope that's already started here. The Oregonian has maybe simplified that into say, we're on an upward trend, and we expect that trend to continue in the state of Oregon. One thing that I do think is important to bring to the board's attention is, it's somewhat to Director Schradel's question earlier, that if in this October 14 epidemic trend and projections document, it says that if, I just lost it. If we assume that transmission increases by 5 percentage points, so the amount of transmission in the community, it's the word they're using is that the outcomes will increase more dramatically. So that slope of increase, to the point about if we pull back on some of the public health methods that we're using now, there's the potential there for an increase, of course. That's the information I have today for you on the metrics.
Excellent. I'll do a roll call for questions. Thank you for that information. Director Bauer?
Thank you, Chair Ford. Tiffany, I just wanted to verify the asterisk in there. I had to do some checking. That is because of the smoke and fires that we had. They weren't looking at that. Is that correct?
That's right. There was I'll call it a pause or a moratorium on using the test positivity rates based on wildfire and natural disaster happening throughout the state, access to folks being tested, the availability to community for access is underpinning that. But yes, you're right, it was paused.
Okay, and I think that gave some people hope. But then the number of cases, as you can see, it has, increased quite a bit. And your statement, if transmission increases 5%, outcomes more dramatically, that's in case counts, not deaths, but case counts. I just want to verify.
Yes, daily infections.
Daily infections. Okay.
Well, the Oregon Health Authority uses even a different language there. It's both in case counts and severe cases. So instead of using the word death, the Oregon Health Authority's projection document talks about severe cases growing from 40 a day to 48 a day. So one thing, maybe this is of help too, in that dramatic, that's their word, Oregon Health Authority's word. If you look at the case rates in Oregon at 2456, what they would project there is that would go to 3,400 with only 5% more transmission in the community.
Thank you. I appreciate all your work in digging all this out.
Sure. It is available all online, should people want to review.
Yeah. Thank you, Director Bauer. Director Benaloga?
Yes, thank you, Tiffany. I did have a question, a couple of questions, actually. So this slide specifically where it says all schools should prepare for transition to comprehensive distance learning, is that specifically K through 3 if you were thinking of opening K through 3, or does that also include the small groups that we're able to bring in?
The small, well, it says should. So first we have to attend to it. It says should. So this is the recommendation for the McClackemess County Public Health and officers. Then minimally the metric is different for bringing in small groups, and that metric is at 14 cases, or for the past 14 days. Have there been any cases? So you do have to work side by side with Clackamas County Health on, do you have any for the small group, for the one-on-one? It's less about case rates and then more about, in your specific school district environment or school environment, have there been any cases in the past 14 days? If I went too much in a circle there, re-ask the question and I'll work on it some more.
No, that was it. And then I just had, so for the small groups, I want to make sure that I am understanding correctly. So if we do have small groups and there is a case, what happens to that small group? Or what happens to the small groups in that school?
So the small groups would be the students, but the cohort of all the staff involved, the students involved, we would take our direction from the county health authority, and it is very likely that they would all be sent home and excluded from school, from the work site, from school for either 10 or 14 days. It kind of depends on what symptoms they have or don't.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you for answering the questions. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Director Schradel.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate learning and seeing this data. I think I'm hearing it correctly. The K through 3 is 30 per 100,000. The small groups is 14 days of not confirmed COVID. And then I'm thinking of the lack of educational model that would happen during the transition from in-person to CDL back to in-person. So it's not really a question. The data is just being added to my brain. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, Director Schradel. Director McVeigh.
Nope. No questions for me.
Director Perez.
Thank you, Chair Ford. No questions.
Thank you. I just have 2 questions. So with the county now giving us some clear specifications on how you move through certain pieces of this, do we have access to their contact tracers to get information like someone in our district has had COVID in the last 14 days, or how do we, or are people self-identifying?
Both, to be fair. I think the nature of human nature in a social media time and in a texting and fast communication time is someone leaves a doctor's office and they text their support network, and their support network shares information with others. So sometimes information moves organically through the community in that way. When that happens, our school nurses, together with our risk management team, work together with the county. And when clinics and medical providers have positives, they work with the county that pushes out to our school nurses and risk management team. So I would say it's, except for that it's only 2 ways, it's triangulated. So whatever a 2-way triangulation is, it's both, it's going in both directions, bidirectional. Might be the word.
Yeah, there is the state has funded contact tracers in every county. And so somehow we can get a closer connection to that. That'd be helpful, I think, because they're working out specific communication pathways that are supposed to ease the roads of getting that information quicker when someone comes up positive. My second question is small group, this metric and the fact that it seems as though it's more attainable. And I definitely acknowledge what Director Schradel brought up in terms of just the transition of one thing to the next. if small groups were to happen, what are the testing requirements? Are there testing every week? Like, how are we even regulating that 14 days?
There are not testing requirements from the county or Oregon Health Authority. It is not part of our approved blueprint as a school district. So that's where we stand right now.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you for that good information. I'm sure that you never knew in your career you'd be a infectious disease specialist, but here's to learning for us all, right?
My brain muscle is getting stronger.
Absolutely. I think that's all of us. That is the opportunity in this. Okay, moving right along to the next section on our agenda, which is the reopening options and recommendations. And Superintendent Utterback will definitely approach this. And just to remind you, Director Perez had a specific question in this area about, can parents sign a waiver to return to school? So passing it over to you, Superintendent Utterback, maybe Director one day. I don't know.
So I just want to draw your attention to two of the slides that our Chief of Staff, Tiffany Shireman, went over. One of them here is with kindergarten through third grade. There is this box here that in order for that to happen, that a school district must comply with sections 1 through 3 of the Ready Schools Safe Learner Guidance. And then you'll also notice that in order to be able to do limited in-person instruction, again, that same requirement is present there as well. So reason why that's important is I wanted to share with you that since the last time that we reviewed some of these requirements, our staff has worked on our blueprint that would allow us to bring students back onto our campuses. And so we have our North Clackamas operational blueprint for both hybrid and on-site operations was reviewed by the Clackamas County Health Department on October 7th. And we were notified by them that there are no adjustments needed to our plan. And so we are ready to submit an updated blueprint to ODE should the board choose to take action either to bring small groups of students back on to our campuses. So I think that's an important component there. It's also, I think, really important for the board to understand that if you recall the Ready Schools Safe Learners Guidance, we're talking, now I think it's 80 plus pages. There are literally dozens upon dozens upon dozens of requirements that will need to be in place before we could bring a single student back onto a school site. And those are outlined in those sections 1, 2, and 3. A lot of training for staff, a lot of safety protocols that need to be in place that it would take some time for us to build up to those, but we now have our blueprint and would stand ready to do that when we need to move in that direction. So I'm going to, there's 5 slides that I'm going to go through with you and talk you through. And they start actually on the outside of our schools and then move to inside of our schools. And so the first area is around fields and playgrounds. The second area is around athletics and community use. The next is around small in-person instruction or individual instruction and services, then moving to the K-3 conversation, and then moving to the K-12/412 conversation. So that's what I'm going to lead us through in this conversation this morning. So the first is just around our general school fields and our playgrounds. And you may recall that when we responded to this pandemic, we shut down our fields and our playgrounds, and we kept our walking paths and our tracks open for community use. And my recommendation, as you'll see down here at the bottom, is to begin to allow non-organized use of our district fields and our playgrounds beginning on Monday. And The reason for that is, first of all, there are no health metrics now for the general community use of outdoor fields and playgrounds. At one point, playgrounds were shut down. They are no longer. We as a community, I believe, are in a better place of understanding some of the overall components of this virus, of wearing a mask and being physically distant from other groups that aren't in our household. And so my recommendation here is just to move to allowing somebody that wants to maybe exercise their dog on the field at one of our schools, allow them to do that, or a family that wants to play, catch with a football, allowing that to happen. So that's the first recommendation. And I'll go through all these, and then we'll pause, we'll take a break, and then we can have a conversation about these. So the second recommendation is around the use of our fields district-wide for athletics, and then a conversation about more official community use of our fields. And when I talk about community use of our fields, I'm talking about that structure of facility use and organizations renting our fields. So when we look at this area of access, again, there are no health metrics from the state for the use of outdoor fields. Instead, what there are detailed safety protocols from the Oregon Health Authority that we need to follow for approved groups that use our fields for organizational purposes. And so those are pod size of students. It's physical distancing, it's mask wearing, it's temperature checks, it's contact tracing and collecting that information. There's also a waiver that we would ask students and parents to sign. OSAA provides also additional safety requirements and recommendations as well. So again, no formal metrics, but a lot of safety protocols in place if we were to move in this direction. I will share with you that, as part of my role as serving as your superintendent, I will say that, we have learned each month and each passing week, we're learning more and more about this virus. Where is it highly transmittable? Where is it not? I meet with county superintendents almost on a weekly basis now. In addition, I meet with other superintendents across the state in an effort to share information, in an effort to learn what other districts are doing that's successful, that wasn't maybe as successful as they had hoped. In an effort to try to maintain some consistency within the county. We want to collaborate, right? And so that is going along at the same time. We're constantly reviewing this data that Tiffany Shireman shared, constantly in conversations with ODE, the Oregon Health Authority, Clackamas County Public Health, and clearly we are expected and required to follow any requirements that they have in place. And so if we were to open up our high school athletic programs to access to their facilities, right, we're doing that with all of that feedback and that information that we're constantly being given. And so given that and the overlay of what many of you shared, you're hearing from our community members around some of the mental health issues of our students, one of the things that we know is that getting students outside, getting students engaging with other people in physical activity is great for individuals' mental health. And we're hearing that is a concern that I think we all share that are in this meeting today. So my recommendation to you in this area is that we allow OSAA high school athletic groups access to our fields beginning November 2nd. Following state safety protocols. I would say that this would move North Clackamas in alignment with many of the other districts in Clackamas County. I believe there's only 2 school districts right now that are not allowing athletics activities in Clackamas County. And it's moving us where a lot of the other districts in the state already are, or they're already moving. The second part of this recommendation is that we would remain closed to non-North Clackamas School District organized community facility rentals. And one of the reasons for this is we want to start small. We want to try to maintain safety. We need to build this program, and we've been working and trying to get us to move in this direction of a November 2nd start. But we don't know, number one, right now, how many students are going to participate in these activities. We know that the group size is very small, which means we need more fields. And so we would like to have our availability of all of our district fields as we build out these athletic pods in these groups, and not be restricted to a certain number of fields because we have given up some community use at this point. I think if you decide to move in this direction, I think we would get these pods set up, and in 6 weeks or so, we could assess how many students are participating, and then we could come back and revisit a conversation about community use of our facilities, our outdoor facilities. But my recommendation is at this time is to keep our facilities closed to organizations outside the school district. So that leads us then to moving into the building. And so looking at limited in-person instruction for specific groups of students or individuals. Chief of Staff Shireman went over the conditions, the health metrics in order for this to happen. I've tried to summarize them here is that in order for us to do this, there has to have been no confirmed cases of COVID-19 among school staff or students in the past 14 days. And then we need to comply with sections 1 to 3 of the Ready School Safe Learners Guidance. In addition, schools need to be operating in comprehensive distance learning and have that system set up. I think it's important to point out that this recommendation is not a substitute for comprehensive distance learning. This is in addition to comprehensive distance learning. And again, I think that you'll see my recommendation down here is looking for your permission, your willingness to let us pilot some small group instruction services on site at some of our schools. I think this would help address some of the concerns that we heard from parents in the thought exchange around students that maybe need some specialized services. I think it would help address some of the concerns too around mental health needs and supports for students. It would also provide us the opportunity to begin to build some confidence and some success in bringing students back onto campuses. And obviously we would need to work with our associations on this, but as we hope to one day, right, get to a hybrid model, this would be a step in moving ultimately in that direction, but in a much smaller and focused format. So the recommendation here is to seek your support for us to begin to pilot some small group individual instruction services on site. Likely looking at students right now that are not engaging in comprehensive distance learning. We do have some students that for a variety of reasons, comprehensive distance learning, they just have not engaged at all. We want to reach out to those students and see potentially if you were to be able to come on site, would that help? Is it issues with technology? Is it issues with Wi-Fi access? Is it issues around homelessness? And then we obviously have some students that have very specific needs, and that potentially providing those services online is not the best avenue to do that. So that's what we're talking about here. And then recommendation area number 4 is that reference to K-3 in-person instruction. And you can see the metrics there. Just a quick review. Have to be at or less than 30 cases per 100,000 residents the previous 3 weeks. We're not headed in that direction right now. It does not look in that is a metric that is going to be met anytime soon. And as I've referenced there, both in Clackamas and Multnomah counties, it's escalating across the state. So my recommendation for K-3 instruction would be that we continue with comprehensive distance learning through second quarter, that's February 9th of 2021, and that we would revisit this timeline should the required COVID-19 Oregon health metrics for in-person instruction be modified. I think we've all heard rumors, some speculation that they may revisit the metrics and may modify them. And that potentially could put us in a place in which we may have to come back to the board and have a conversation about, hey, we're now in a place where we seem to be meeting these new metrics, and let's have a conversation about it. The reason for second quarter and that 3-month window is one of the things that we've really tried to provide our parents and our students is some consistency. We want to be able to say to families, okay, for the next 3 months, here's what you can expect from us. And so there's not this worry or this concern about, next week, are we going to go back, are we going to jump into hybrid instruction? Or we just want to be able to provide really consistent, clear communication to our families and our students. And I think that this helps provide that in this recommendation. And then the final area is that in-person instruction, really grades 412 or K-12. And that's the current 10 cases per 100,000 residents, plus the test positivity numbers as well. Same recommendation as we would have for K-3. Again, continue with comprehensive distance learning through second quarter, through February 9th. And again, we could always come back and revisit this should the metrics change for in-person instruction. So with that, we have been at this for about an hour and 15 minutes, and I'll turn it back to Chair Ford. We had a break built in, and then come back with a conversation about each of these areas and where the board sits with them.
Cool. Thank you, Superintendent. We have a 5-minute break, and during that time, just remember, we have 5 things that we're coming back to talk about: the allowing of non-organized use of fields, the allowing of OSAA high school athletics, pilot small groups, K through 3 CDL continuing to February 9th, and then 4 through 12 continuing through February 9th, 2021 for CDL. All right, so we'll return back here. I'll give you guys 7 minutes because we're in front of our time. So let's do 10:20. We're returning back here and we'll get right back on it. Thank you, guys.
We're still streaming, so turn off your cameras and your audio.
It's 10:19. We'll give everybody a minute to get back. I hope you got some refreshments. Me personally, I got Smarties. That's the favorite part of my year. This time of the year, Smarties are like easy to find. It's one of my favorite. Well, Sandra already knows I'm a sugar person, so. But I've reduced it down to certain things. Smarties actually are really low in sugar. Not everybody likes them, but I like them. All right, 10:20. Are we all back? So we can go ahead and let's start our discussion about these 5 points, and thank you for pulling them up and keeping them very specific for us, Superintendent. So I'll do a round robin to allow you guys to each talk about it. I would ask that if you could touch on how you feel about those 5, because obviously we've been given a recommendation. We need to at least have some understanding of where you guys are sitting on those recommendations, and try to be specific as possible in each of the 5 so that we can try to be clear on where each one of you stand. Okay. All right, we'll start off with Director Bauer.
Thank you, Chair Ford. I think I just had maybe one follow-up question, and then I'll go through each one. On the athletic fields opening, I just want to be sure I understood. It would be, let me see, it remains, the recommendation is to remain closed to non-North Clackamas School District organized community facility rentals. So conversely, we will be opening to anyone who applies then who has an organized group in our school district, correct?
No, the only folks that under my current recommendation, Director Bauer, the only access to our fields, official access to our fields, would be our own high school OSAA athletic groups. So we would not allow any other community use groups or any outside organizations access to our fields.
Okay.
For an official purpose, right? That doesn't mean that when our high school students are not on the fields, that if, like I said, the family wants to go toss a football on one of our fields and we're not using it, they would have access to do that. But this is organized community facility rentals would not be allowed at this time.
Okay, I got it. I took it that way at first, then I started reading way too much into it. Okay, well, thank you for answering that. And then this one may be hard. Well, I did have one other. So it was opening up to the limited groups. I like that idea with the pilot and really focusing on the needs that our kids have. Do you expect it might include some CTE classes and help there?
Certainly CTE is something that the state references in their documents. And you know, what we're seeking right now is your permission to move in this direction, and then we'll engage our building administrators with obviously feedback that they're hearing from our staff and our families as we build this. So I wouldn't rule it out, but I wouldn't say it's a for sure. I think we're going to want to start really small, particularly in a time, and we've heard the metrics are not moving in the right direction. And so I think initially I think we're really talking very few students initially. And then, like I said, let's build our confidence, let's build our success, let's make sure we're really rock solid on our protocols. And then we could gradually, begin to build that. I had a conversation with the superintendent in a neighboring school district. They literally have started with 2 students. I mean, that's where they started, and they're gradually going to, to build from there.
I appreciate that. And looking back and observing the work that you've done and others in this district, you have that policy and it is good. I mean, we learn from our pilot programs and then build on those successes or learn from our mistakes. So I appreciate that. So as far as your recommendations, because of the metrics going up, I appreciate starting slow. The first one with the on-site operations, no, that's the fields. Yeah, I think athletics is great. We got to get started. That's outdoors. I agree with that. And then when you explain the other groups, I agree with that. Then the other is limited in-person instruction. I think because of equity, that's a great, that's a reason we need to do this. There are so many that are struggling and focusing on that. So I totally support the pilot small group instruction services on site, starting small, keeping an eye on the metrics and the case count. Then in-person instruction for K through 3. I wish we could open up, but with the metrics. And one thing that keeps coming back to me is our staff at risk and the classified at risk. And there was another statistic where I think it was 50% of our staff is at risk or has families at home that are at risk.
Yep.
It was higher for classified. And the other was, the number of teachers that at the beginning of the year were thinking of retiring or not teaching and continuing because of that risk. So that's of concern. So I do support your recommendation on waiting till February 9th, K through 3, and for the same reasons, waiting for grades 4 through 12 through February 9th, and appreciate getting the word out soon enough to let our parents know. And also there's still that little liability thing that we haven't cleared up. So that's another reason for supporting those. Did I cover all of them, Chair Ford?
You sure did. You did a great job.
Okay,
And
tried.
superintendent was right with you, sliding through the slides. So appreciate you guys.
Well, I had to review it too. Thank you. And thank you for all this effort, everyone, your staff and you. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bauer. Director Schrader.
So I thank you, Director Bauer. You echoed basically on what I'm going to restate, but I also want to say on cognitive time. Everything that Director Bauer, I agree with, and so I'm a duplicate.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Director Benaloga.
Thank you, Chair Ford. Yes, let's see. One of the things I did want to mention, yes, I agree with opening our facilities to the public again. I think that that's an important piece of, being an active member and being a part of our community. So I think that's important. I'm glad to hear that. As far as athletics, I also do agree with that. I will say I've been reading, I'm quite familiar with the OSAA guidelines. We've been going over them quite a bit lately, and they're very, very stringent as far as the health guidelines and the safety measures that OSAA expects with our high school athletics. So I am, again, glad to see that that is something we're looking at. As far as piloting small groups, I do think that that's important. I think one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about lately is that we need to listen to the needs of our community and our staff. And in doing the thought exchange and in being active listeners, that also means that we have to be responsive. It's not just finding out how everybody feels, we then have to respond. So I think that I did write down that you're talking about kids that are not engaging, but I was glad to hear, Superintendent, that these groups haven't been determined, that it's something that you're going to be working through as to how does this affect our special education students, our CTE kids, our ELL students. Do you have a number in mind, and is that going to be district-wide? Is it going to be school-wide? How are you handling the numbers part?
Good question. I will say we really haven't delved deeply into what this will look like. What we have done is, as I referenced earlier, getting our blueprint completed that has to have all the protocols and procedures approved by the county and ready to submit so we can do this. So that's where a lot of our time and energy has been focused. We obviously have had conversations at the cabinet level, brought in some principals as well. But we need to continue those conversations. You know, one of the things that you have shared with me, or I've shared with you over as we've dealt with this pandemic now for 7 months, is we've learned not to look too far down the road and do too much planning because it changes. And so I didn't want to, you know, get so far down the road on the planning on this if this wasn't a place where you and or the community was interested in going. So, after this conversation, this now will be our focus on building this model and what it will look like. But again, I think I don't want to get people's expectations up that we're going to have, hundreds of kids, in the next 2 weeks in our schools. That's not going to happen. And we're going to start very, very small. And like I said, we need to build our staff's comfort level. And we need to build, in some cases, our students' comfort level in coming back, and just get really tight and make sure our safety is in place. And once we do that, then we'll start adding, kids into that model. So.
All right, thank you so much for that clarification. And then as far as the K3 and 412 waiting until February, I think that is the responsible thing to do. I think that the economic and the emotional trauma of going in and out of school is too much for our community. I think that I think someone voiced it earlier, we need to give our families some sense of stability during this very unstable time. It's kind of our job. So I think it's really important that we do the least harm possible. So I do agree with waiting until February. I do see that you've said that revisit the timeline should the metrics be modified. And I know there's some talk of that happening. Do you have any idea, I think, again, I'm probably asking questions that we don't really know the answer to, but do we have any idea? Is there just a lot of, I'm assuming, political pressure, or is there scientific-based information that's leading us to believe that we can loosen some of those metrics? What is your thought?
Yes, this is a little bit of Superintendent Overbeck's speculation and his own personal thinking. So I've not heard anything official. I think I think on the front page of the Clackamas Review on Wednesday, there's a picture of the governor with a brief statement that she believes the school metrics are too stringent. So that's potentially telling us that we may be headed towards a place where they're going to lessen a little bit. So you may see the state health metric, that the state positivity rate, you may see that go away and just have local county metrics as one factor I've heard pushed around. Certainly they could adjust the numbers where you could increase the county test positivity percentage up, or the number of cases per 100,000 could go up. I say all that with two caveats. A lot of that conversation that was starting to happen around changing the metrics started when it appeared that the Oregon was continuing on that downward trend. That is not the case anymore. And so, I don't know if that will cause those conversations to pause or, to change people's thinking. And the other piece that I will say to that is that, Oregon has been one of the best states in the country in managing this virus from a death rate and from an infection rate. And part of that is we've had some pretty stringent requirements. And, so there's going to be obviously a lot of give and take, and folks are going to have to wrestle, with these decisions. So that's where I think we are. What I'm hearing, Director Benaloga, is that up until last week, we were hearing that expect some communication around the end of October. Now this week, I did not hear that. So I don't know if that's because things are changing, with where the virus is headed.
Right, and I think you're right in echoing the sentiment that we've learned that we cannot plan very far ahead. So I completely understand that. Thank you for your candid And thank you so much. So yes, I support all 5 initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Director McVeigh.
All right, thank you. 4 questions. The first one is, why wait 2 weeks for field use when the weather's only going to turn worse? And why weren't gyms part of that recommendation?
Yeah, good question. And I've got Tammy O'Neill on the call. Tammy is our Associate Director of High Schools and Athletics. We need to do training for our coaches and make sure that they are going to clearly follow those pretty stringent protocols. And so that's a concern that allows us to do that. It also is going to allow students to sign up, we've got to get waivers signed. We've got to get pods built. And so, students aren't changing from group to group. So it really is Tori, just getting us that time to do that, knowing that you would not take action until the 22nd to officially to move in this direction. So that's our thinking, and it's what our high schools and Tammy O'Neill believe is what's going to be needed to do this right.
Feels odd to be behind PPS. That's one of my comments.
Yeah.
I
would say we're behind some and ahead of others in my conversations with superintendents yesterday. So yeah.
And the thought of gyms?
Right now, no indoor use.
Second question, will small groups, have we thought of including that for daycare?
Yeah, we have not, and I have Natalie Whistler, our Director of Community Services, and Natalie can address this as well. But no, we haven't, and I think just from that, for us, I'm uncomfortable given where the metrics are headed right now of bringing groups of 20 together. We are seeing across the state school districts that have opened in K3 are having to go back into comprehensive distance learning. I don't know the numbers. Earlier this week, there had been 25, I think, school outbreaks, or at least 25 people that have been identified with schools that have come down with the virus. So I know that's a concern for us. But Natalie, can you chime in here and provide some additional context around daycare?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm, open to exploring this, especially as we, do bring some small groups back and use that as our starting point or pilot. In order to run programs successfully in our school, we do rely on some of the in-person school infrastructure, such as the school office and school nursing. And so if we kind of build up our systems and have that in place, I think that could set us to where we could re-examine the possibility of daycare. And that also includes looking at the demand. I'm waiting on some numbers from Clackamas County Child Care Resource and Referral. Last I checked, there were open school age spots in private community-based providers in both Milwaukee and the Happy Valley area. A lot of parents are still hesitant to send their kids back to in-person settings, and we're hearing from private care providers that they have openings.
That's great to hear that there's openings.
Yeah, and Director McVeigh, I think the other piece that we're a little unique in the sense that as a school district, we operate our own daycare programs with district staff. I think we just saw PPS is looking at, opening up some daycares, and correct me if I'm wrong, Natalie, a lot of these are not district staff. So these are folks that are outside partners that are providing those services.
My third question is, I can get behind the February date because we have the weasel words in there to revisit if metrics change. What I'm not comfortable with is the metrics, and that's outside of your control, my control. And so how do we message, or how is the message going to be when we announce this date, to, in a way, protect the administration and teachers, that it's not unions that are keeping us from reopening. It is really the metrics that we have no control over, or is that even a concern?
I think it's I will say that the communications that I'm receiving from parents, and I think we thought in the thought exchange, for our district, is obviously a lot of support for district staff. And I think early on in our, going back to July and August, as we were, working through this, we had to do a lot of communication that these are state metrics, they're not district metrics. I'm not hearing that now as much from our parents. Occasionally I'll get an email like, why aren't you opening? And, and so I will share with them that it is the state metrics that really control that. And when people want to, advocate for changing those, I send them, to those decision makers. I think we can take this opportunity, should the board adopt these recommendations. It provides us another opportunity to communicate that to our community, that again, these are state metrics that are really outside district control.
And if the chair will indulge, I want to go back to a question that she had from before our break, and I apologize, I didn't have it. Back on the in the must fully comply with 1 through 3, whatever that was. One of those no cases for staff or students within the 14 days. What is the official notification of that? Is it from a tracer, or are we going to require a note from a doctor that Corey has COVID? What would be the official notification of that?
Yeah, from a district nearby that is now in this process, it is a lot of clear communication from Clackamas County. Okay. And what I have heard is that it is very specific to the person. So you could have an outbreak, and some people it's a 10-day exclusion, some it's a 14-day exclusion. And then at some point they will also, let's say you have an outbreak in a school, you're in this limited in-person instruction, you have an outbreak, you deal with the outbreak according to the Clackamas County Health Authority, you have another outbreak, right? You deal with that. At some point the county comes in and says, you need to go back to comprehensive distance learning. So stop your small groups and go back to comprehensive, or pause your limited in-person instruction or your K-3 instruction until this calms down. So it's really what I have heard from fellow superintendents. It's been really, Clackamas County has come alongside and has been a really clear communicator in guiding us on what we need to do. So I would say, and also I think, Chair Ford referenced the contract tracers. We're not in contact with the contract tracers. We're in contact with probably the contract tracers supervisors that are doing that work and then responding to us on what we would need to do.
And then no question, just a comment. I just would hope that when how we vote today and we make these announcements, and if your recommendations are all approved, that somehow there's some comment about gyms, because I think that's going to be, they'll hear it and they're going to, what about gyms? Or what about, can band practice underneath an awning or whatnot? So just some thoughts. Thank you.
Tori, I appreciate those comments, and I think we can definitely communicate that, and I just made a note of that. And I think this is the first step. And I know that our activity folks, our co-curricular staff they're gonna ask the question, okay, what about us? Where are we in that process? And I think you're right. Can some folks do some things under covered play areas, right? That's outdoors. I know that some school districts are wrestling with, if we opened up all the doors to our covered batting facilities, right? Is that cover? Could we utilize those? And so those are pieces that we're gonna have to wrestle with. I don't know of anybody right now that is indoors in the metro area for gym use right now.
Yeah, I know we have a strong equity stance, and we firmly believe that. I think COVID has created some more and more disparity of those who have and have not. I hear families drive into Salem and other areas so they can do this, and those that have not just do not have that opportunity to do that, and it's difficult.
I think one of the things that I wanted to share, and I left out in my opening comments was, and I think it speaks to this, is that students are going out and engaging in athletic activities. And when they do that in an unsupervised setting, they're putting themselves at risk. They're putting other community members at risk. And I think one of the benefits of us beginning to start to bring our students onto our campuses in these very structured and protocol-like settings is that we're going to keep our kids safe, because we do know that they're going to go out and participate in these activities regardless of what we do. And so I think this is beginning our process of addressing some of that. Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Director Perez.
Thank you, Chair Ford. Echo pretty much what Director Barr and Schradel and Benaloga and Director McVeigh and the questions. Appreciate the questions. The one question I have is regarding the pilot small group instruction services on site. As you said, superintendent metrics are not moving in the right direction. But let's say we have rock solid safety protocols in place as we start this small group instruction. But let's say John Doe's in the class and John Doe's grandmother's cousin gets COVID, and they come back and file a legal lawsuit against the district. Are we protected?
Yeah, good question. And I'm going to say, I'll make a comment. What appears to be happening in the state when some of these outbreaks are happening is the kids are not getting COVID, or the staff aren't getting COVID because of what's happening in the schools. It appears it's because they've gotten it outside of the school structure, and then there's either the risk that they're going to bring it into the school structure, or in some cases they brought it into the school structure. And so, yes, it does raise the issue of liability. And this is a piece that we spent a lot of time talking about. And it's a piece that I've wrestled with, as you know, I've had conversations with all of you about this.
Yeah.
And so I'm to a place of, what we've been told is that if we are following the state guidelines, if we follow our blueprints, and all of those protocols and processes, we should be okay from a liability standpoint. And I also then, weigh that decision to move in this direction with our kids have needs. And, and so, weighing that liability risks with kids that have some pretty significant needs for us to interact with them. I'm gonna, where I'm at right now is leaning on the side of our kids, which is what we need to do, and making sure that our protocols and our processes are rock solid, and move forward. So that, that's how I'm choosing to kind of address this, hoping potentially that when the legislature reconvenes in February, that they will take up this issue of liability again. And they do have the opportunity to go back and make it retroactive to a prior date. So if they wanted to pass some legislation around liability, I believe they can go back and say from January 1 on or July 1 on. And there's the potential that we could get some protection there as well.
Thank you, Superintendent. Appreciate that. And then last thing, not a question so much as much as it is just frustration trying to keep track of. I mean, we got Clackamas County Health Department, we got ODE, we got Oregon Health Authority, we got OSAA, we got Clackamas County Public Health, we got CDC, we got Ready Safe Learners. I'm trying to trying to stay up with all of that. It's frustrating. So that's just a comment. But thank you. And I support all 5 recommendations.
I've got all of it in a very large 3-ring binder if you're interested. All those documents.
Oh, God.
Oh,
All right. So
yeah.
I'll just sum us up. I think I appreciate all the directors and their comments and questions. Many of them were the same ones I had. I do want to circle back to Director McVeigh. You made a comment about childcare, and I'm happy too that there's openings, but do know I'm on some phone calls with some committees where they're doing some great work to make sure they change the way they pay state subsidizing of childcare. So we need to get kids into those slots and probably faster than we even think about a district, because that's going to keep our economy good for those families there. So that's just kind of a public announcement for me. And then the other part is I got a great example of just how rock solid things can be, but things just go wrong. You know, everyone's talking about, oh, colleges are open and pro sports are open, but I got a couple family members playing in college sports, and they test every week, y'all. And college kids, they like to go out, and when things go wrong, they are taken off the game, and they have to sit in the dorm room for 2 weeks without talking to anybody. They go on to school online, and they have no engagement at all, and they cannot play that sport. They cannot practice. This is not something that just is easily kind of, let's just do it. It is tough to manage even us doing it. So just know that I'm excited that we have these 5 points, but this is a lot of work that we're going to have to embark on. And I think it's smart to start small so we can at least handle it. My questions are: the blueprint submission, when is that? When are we turning that in to ODE, the updated one?
Yeah, after you would take action. So my current thinking is, based on the conversation that we just had, I will update the board book on Monday with a document that is very similar to these recommendations. You then would be asked to take action at Thursday's board meeting regarding these recommendations, and then we would submit our blueprint shortly thereafter. So we would need to, I believe, check a box that says that we're doing some small group instruction is what we would, the box that we would check right now.
Perfect. And then are you aware, are the city parks open, fields? Are they?
Yeah, Natalie, can you speak to that?
Yeah. You know, I'm not certain if parks are open in the city of Milwaukee. We do know that city of Happy Valley parks are open. And then we do know that North Clackamas Parks and Recreation is now reopening their fields and facilities to public use. I don't think they are opening formal organized field and facility use either, but they are opening some of their own programs.
Excellent. And then going through your 5 recommendations, I'm fine with allowing the fields to open. I think that that's important considering the time is about to change. And we all know that dark, rainy days don't help mental health. So I think it's important that that is an option for families and children. Allowing the OSAA high school athletics, I think that's a great idea, but I'm with Director McVeigh. I think that we need to diversify and think about music and art, because not all kids play athletic. I happen to be an athlete, but I also was a musician, so I get it. There's many sides to children. I don't want any kid to feel like they don't have that opportunity. Piloting small groups, I think, is a great start. And I know that you guys know this, but I just want to state it. I think it needs to be from an equity lens. A lot of the families that are allowed are not the highest need. And so we want to make sure that we get to the highest need first, and then we can make sure we get to everyone over time. And then K through 3 and 4 through 12, CDL continue through February 9th. I think that's fair. I think it's appropriate. I think it's really good for our community to know where they can plan for that next milestone and not have to be unaware, unsure of what's next. So I appreciate you guys pulling this all together, and I look forward to us bringing it back for a vote on Thursday. All right, so we are, yeah, sorry, who was that?
I was just saying thank you, board, for that discussion. I really appreciate it. And I've got some staff members that signed on to this meeting, and let them know that they can sign off.
Yes, have a great Saturday. Thank you for joining us on this Saturday morning. I wish I could give you all coffee. If we were in person, I'd definitely give you a big smile.
We'll
Okay.
take a rain check on that, Chair.
Okay. Absolutely. All right, we are now closing our work session and moving into our governance section. And this section is about our more like it's discussion, but also some good training that we probably all need. And our wonderful board secretary, Sandra Henderson, who I have to say, and I just got to
She's
say,
awesome.
yeah, she's awesome. And I don't think that we get enough opportunities to say that. So thank you, Ms. Henderson.
Thank
You
you.
are appreciated. We totally appreciate everything that you do, the time you spend, the miles you spend on the road, making sure that we're all up to speed and not missing anything. So we appreciate you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Board book and board manual review. You are on, Ms. Henderson. What you
Okay,
got
so
for us?
Matt, I want to share my screen now. So if I can get you to, yep. And let's see, share. So as you've noticed, our board book looks a little bit different now. And the way that we used to do resources has changed. So instead of a tab with resources and a bunch of stuff that was listed, we now have links. So if you can see on the side here, we've got links to all the things that used to be in your resources. Because it's a link, I had to make them Google Drive. So whenever you click on things, that'll go into Google Drive. So you'll need to be logged into your email, your district email, to be able to access it. But the very first one here I have is it's a table of contents and kind of a board guide. This is a lot of information that you might find useful. Contact information, so I'll scroll through that real quick. Ooh, it's not laying out real good on the screen being shared, but it also lists the things that are linked. So if you're wanting to see what you're looking for, that's a way to get there. So I just wanted to kind of show that. And then I know the new board book has been a little bit different. I'm got to figure out how to close this now. Sorry, should have practiced that.
Just jump to the other tab, jump back to your tab at the top.
Okay, stop share. We'll just stop share. So I'm not sure how many of you are actually walking through with the board book, or are you just using my PDF that I've been sending?
Be honest.
I go to quick view and then I just go back and forth. But
Okay, good.
I like the old better. I will not lie.
Yeah, I agree with everyone on that. It's got a lot of functionality that we're not using.
Yeah.
And I don't know how necessary it is. You're able to, and actually I just got a new email from them that they're now integrating with Zoom, and I haven't had a chance to look at that. So I'll do some more research and just stay tuned. But does anybody have any other questions on the board book? Or
I don't think Zoom works on our iPads that we got 5 years ago.
Yeah, they're not as functional for that. They're better for just reading emails.
You know,
Yeah,
Sandra, I use your PDF, but I'm trying to I use the other for reading, but I'm not good at going back and forth. I do quick view and then I close it and then it's like, oh, I'm got to go back to the beginning. Is there a quick way to do quick view without going back 2 steps? Making myself clear. Seems like I always have to go 2 steps instead of 1.
I know what you mean, Mitzi.
Yeah.
So,
Sandra, can you pull it back up?
Yeah, I'm gonna go right now.
I'm sure there's some trick.
And I know mine may look a little different than yours because I'm a
admin.
Yeah. But if I go into like today's meeting,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and there's a quick view and then there's view meeting details. So you say you use the quick view.
Yeah, I use quick view
Okay.
and then I
So
open.
you can go
So-
up here, this little gold bar says return to your meeting.
Oh,
Oh, okay. I
mine
don't know
doesn't
if I
show
see
that. I don't have that. Mine says calendars or join meeting when I'm in quick view.
See, that's what I wondered if you had a different view than I do.
I don't remember seeing that, but I'll look.
So click on board book though, if you wouldn't mind, on the actual link, board work session, October 17th, the
Okay.
hyperlink on the right.
On the line.
In
On
the
the right.
content area, like, yeah.
The PDF right there, Sandra. Board
Yeah.
work session, October 17th.
Oh,
right
gotcha.
there.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So once that comes up, how do you get back without closing it out?
Yeah, yeah.
So you guys, what
I think you can just click over here on the left to the next topic.
Oh,
Yeah. What
So
I do is I open it up in two browsers. I hate to tell you that, but
No,
I
that
open it up in two browsers, and that way I can always see the agenda that I actually open up the agenda that she sends an email in one browser, and then I open up board book in another browser so I can flip between those.
yeah.
Because I find it helpful to, when I'm leading a meeting, to see the full agenda
Mm-hmm.
and then be able to see, you know, the content as I need it. But that was my workaround. I don't know if there's an actual better way, but that's my personal workaround.
But you're using the same machine to do that and to Zoom on, right? See, I can't do that.
You're on iPad.
I'm on the iPad for the agenda for the district stuff, and I'm on my work computer for Zoom because I don't have that. I can't have the email on my work computer.
But you can do two tabs on your iPad.
Yeah, I can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, to go back and forth.
Okay. Well, it's a learning curve, and
We're making it work.
we're working on it. All right. And then okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing. And I think the next thing was going to be the committee.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pass the review of committee assignments over to Mitzi because she's really been leading this, and I don't want to. Well, I mean, I'll chime in, Mitzi, but I mean, you led the whole people selection thing.
okay. Yeah, just want to review that we have the names correct. And Lieber, you said you wanted to be on wellness or not? Did I? Okay, the list I have does not have you down on wellness.
It's still on my calendar, Sandra.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
So that may have caused some of the confusion that maybe not all the right people were included in some of the meetings, but then like Libra gets notice of all of them. Is that correct?
But
Libra?
Sandra fixed it. She took,
Okay.
I guess it was like, I don't know, whatever. But I still
Okay.
have bonus on there.
Okay, so mostly just want to confirm that we have the list correct, but then remind people that if you can't make it, check with the other person that is a liaison. And if both of you can't make it, please reach out and get a substitute. And, you know, just go through the list of us. So and that's it. We just want to
So-
be represented and do our job.
So should our protocol then be to not maybe reply all, but at least reply to your partner, yes or no, if you're not going to be able to attend?
I think that's a great approach to the protocol. And then if you're getting a sub, maybe CC myself and Mitzi, just so we're aware that you have someone else coming. So when they contact us to say, you know, who's supposed to be there, we know.
Would you like us to include Matt on that CC, or if it's
Sure.
Mark's, or Mark if it was his meeting, or Tiffany if it's her meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
That
I think
makes sense.
the clarity information, the better. And this, just so you guys have some reference, when I attended the meeting, I was there. It wasn't my meeting, but I was glad I was there because unfortunately the other board members couldn't attend that meeting at that day. But we do want to make sure we're there because they are, you know, they're talking about stuff that eventually comes to us. So we need to have some type of a person that can connect, make some connectivity in there.
Okay, and that's all I have.
Perfect.
Libra, you have any more?
Nope.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Thank
two
you
quick
for doing-
questions.
Oh,
Eric, the
Two
Perez.
real quick questions. So the wellness committee is So I'm sorry, I misunderstood. So is Libra on that? Libra or Chair Ford, are you on that?
No.
Okay. And then the other question was the Community Equity Committee. I was on that committee last year, and I don't recall meeting. So I'm wondering, and we haven't met this year yet. So who's heading that?
That is Shelley Reggiani, our Executive Director of Equity and Instructional Services. I don't have the document in front of me. I think it's quarterly meetings.
Okay.
And I'm guessing with the pandemic last spring, I'm guessing that interrupted meetings of that committee. So I can ask Shelley when that, what is the plan, and have her communicate that to you.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it, Superintendent.
Yep.
Thank you.
But I think it's just quarterly, if I'm remembering correctly.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Bauer, for that. And then the next thing on our agenda is the scheduling of the superintendent search meetings. Ms. Henderson, I know that we have not been the best responsive group for you. So what do you need us to do?
Well, and unfortunately, since Kathy wasn't able to make it, I'm not sure what happened to her, but it would be great to be able to reserve these dates on our calendars. So, we're a few months out yet, but we will be needing yes, thank you, Matt.
So I think, board, what we're looking for tonight, or to start this morning, is to, at least at a minimum, get some dates on your calendar for these 4 events. Now, these aren't everything that's associated with the superintendent search. These don't include already scheduled board meetings. But what we're looking for, according to the timeline that you approved last week, was the week of January 19th, looking at 4-hour session with your consultant to determine who you want to interview, and you'd finalize those interview questions. So that's going through the packets of candidates and determining, are you going to do 6, you're going to do 8, but having those conversations. And then the week of January 25th, the following week, at least holding right now 2 4-hour sessions for those, what we would refer to as those semi-finalist interviews. So those candidates that you identified on the week of the 19th, coming to you probably virtually over the course of 2 4-hour sessions, in case you had 8 candidates to interview, and then coming back to you then on February 1 and 2. That's when the candidates would come into the school district, we would hope, and do their day-long tour of the district and various interviews. You would be one of those spots on their time in the district. We're thinking, 2 finalists, so an hour each, and we'll schedule you in the evening for those. And then an extra board meeting on February 4th for you to select the candidate. And then that begins a week of your legal counsel and the candidate working on the details of the contract. And then you would adopt the contract at your regular meeting on the 11th. And that's when the announcement would be made to the public. So that's what we're hoping to start to get on your calendar, are some of these dates.
So can we all commit to responding to a doodle poll?
It's one way to do that, yes.
Because I mean, we could sit here and try to knock it out, but then we still be missing Kathy.
Oh, yeah.
It would probably be, it probably would be 4 doodle polls, maybe, right?
Yeah.
We'd separate it because there's different times for some of these. So yes.
Sounds good.
I'm just wondering if there's any days we just have to leave out, but maybe Sandra knows those. I mean, if, someone's gone or.
Well, I know like the week of the 25th, we have board meeting on that Thursday, so that's out.
Okay.
Those days are always going to be out. But then if you look at that week, just know in your head that we need 2 additional days from you, right? So you got 1 full commitment of the board meeting, and then we need 2 additional 4-hour sessions. The only other one I saw, and Sandra, correct me if I'm wrong, February 1 looked pretty, and I'm talking about board meetings because I know
Yeah.
those commitments they're locked in.
One of the things that we could try to do too is the week of January 25th. That is a board meeting that week. I think you said, Libra, is that correct? Is we could look and we could work with board chairs to see if we could push those agenda items for that board meeting up a week or back a week.
Okay.
And free up that board meeting for one of those 2 sessions that week. I mean, that's asking a lot of you of 3 nights that week. So that may be something that we could look at as well.
Well, I mean, I caution it a little bit only because that date is so close to what we'll be voting on Thursday, the February 9th, with contingent on metrics changing. So, you know what I mean? I don't know if taking up a meeting is a smart idea, considering that that's close to this next date. We just may be telling folks we're either switching or not. So that meeting might be more important than we think.
Is MLK a holiday for the school district?
Yes.
That could be a really, I don't know if others have that day off, but I do. Gives flexibility in an 8-hour day for sure.
Yeah, you got to remember there's single people on this board, man. Long weekends are important. It's prime time.
Oh, no, that's a weekday.
But it's a long weekend.
Oh.
He
Well,
hasn't
But of
been
course,
single.
if I have to, I will do it. I'm just saying.
No, I appreciate that for sure. I appreciate that.
I think this is too complicated, and I think we just keep Matt another year. That's all.
Second.
Got it.
Call for the vote.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
there's not anyone traveling those weeks, so, and not out of the loop. I mean, that's, I guess, what I was asking. Everyone's
I don't know.
around.
I mean,
You don't know yet.
if we do a doodle poll and I say we walk away from it saying that we're going to commit to Sandra, that we're going to respond immediately, we do that. And then we all commit to not leaving or whatever in the pandemic where you go, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I will say, it may be impossible too. And knowing then that we're going to try to get everybody there, but also they'll obviously be recorded, and you could always, if for some reason you have a conflict, you could always watch it. So
The good news is there's not anyone on this board I wouldn't trust with my vote. So.
Oh,
That's nice.
Appreciate that.
Okay, so Sandra, if you can send that to us, then we will get right on it.
How early in the day could I start offering times?
For the weekday?
Yeah.
Is everybody good with what? What's a good standard time? Everyone's working from home? Is everyone here working from home or no?
No.
Orlando, you have a schedule that switches up, right?
Yeah. 9 o'clock for me would be good in the morning.
Director Benalosa?
I work until 3:30, Monday through Thursday.
Okay, so 4 would be safe for you?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try that. With the exception of weekends, right?
Right. Or the holiday. If I'll throw out the holiday, that could be.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Yes, I work every Thursday. So it would have to be after 5 on Thursday, but every other day I can do 9 a.m.
Okay.
Clarify.
Cool. All right, good to know. Let's get our responses in there and get this done so we can let go of Superintendent Utterback.
No.
You guys are dragging your feet.
I'm going to make sure this gets done next week.
I don't think we're not going to win this one.
Know where you live, all of you.
Filibuster. Sorry,
All right,
Superintendent, we just couldn't get anyone to come together on the doodle poll. So, just
Think he's worked hard enough, you think?
look at this chuckle. He's like, no, Orlando, it's not funny.
He's still smiling.
Yeah.
Sort of.
For the camera.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I want to give you 15 minutes back in your schedule. So I appreciate each one of you and the time that you have spent today. And for everyone out there that's listening, as we work through this.